Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. So today I'm here with the most important chapter of Indian polity, that is making of the Indian Constitution. And this is the most important chapter because this is the basis of the Constitution which we are using today in every court for our fundamental rights, duties, everything. So this is a very important chapter and a very important concept altogether. It is a journey through India's constitutional history. So you need to hear this very carefully. This is not just a topic or a chapter. This is basically the moment where India decided how it wants to exist as a nation. So the first question that would come in anyone's mind is, why do we need a constitution? So let's start this topic with a simple question. Why do we need a constitution? Whatever comes to your mind, just write it in the comment section. Why do we even need a constitution? So, in the context of India, it was for the foundation of a new nation. Imagine a country with no rules, no structure, no authority limits, just got independence. What will happen? There will be chaos, right? So, after independence, India had a huge diversity, multiple religions, different languages, economic inequality. So, we needed something to hold everything together, and that something is what we call the Constitution. Now, if we go to the historical background of this is to be understood very carefully that the idea of making a constitution didn't suddenly come after independence, okay? The Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946, this was something which laid the foundation for a Constituent Assembly, okay? There was growing demand for self-rule and complete end of British colonialism. This was very intensified. It was at a very high level. So the Cabinet Mission Plan was something that proposed the Constitution. Okay. Constituent Assembly was formed in November 1946 under the scheme which was formulated by the Cabinet Mission Plan, right? So the members were indirectly elected. They were not elected directly. They were provincial elections, and that's how they were elected. So the total strength of the assembly was 389 out of this total, and 296 were elected to represent the British India, while 93 seats were allotted to the princely states. And out of 296 members, 292 members were to be elected by the provincial legislatures, while 4 were to be represented by the 4 chief commissioner provinces of Delhi, Ajmer, Coorg, and Merwar, okay, and British Balochistan. 93 seats were reserved for princely states, remained which unfilled as they stayed away from the Constituent Assembly. So total strength was 389. 296 were from the British India and 93 from the princely states. This is what you need to remember for an exam, which was further reduced to 292 members because of the partition. So this was the composition of the Constituent Assembly. These are the three main important points you need to learn about this, okay? Okay. Now these are the key members. So these are the people who wrote the composition, we can constitution, we can say. This is where the legends come in. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Jawaharlal Nehru, Rajendra Prasad, Sardar Patel. But among all, B.R. Ambedkar was the most important person, and he's also called the architect of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so the Constituent Assembly held its first meeting on 9th December 1946, and it reassembled on 14th August 1947 as the Sovereign Constituent Assembly for the Dominion of India. It took almost 2 years, and 11 months and 18 days to finalize the constitution. So, doctors, over here, the main important thing is that on 9 December 1946, the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held. Dr. Satchidanand Sinha was the temporary president, and then later on replaced by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was the permanent member. Okay, he was elected on 11 December 1946. So, this is about the objectives resolution. So this is very important, the most important topic, because this objective resolution was, when this was passed, it turned out to be the preamble of our constitution, which is till date the preamble of the constitution. So Jawaharlal Nehru introduced this objectives resolution, and this resolution became the base of the preamble. It defined sovereignty, democracy, justice, and equality. Okay. So the drafting committee was the Constituent Assembly appointed a drafting committee on 29th August 1947, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee. He submitted first draft of the Constitution of India to the President of the Assembly on 21st February 1948, and the second draft was submitted in 1948 October. First draft on 21st February 1948 and the second draft in October 1948. So the key members are also included N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar, Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, and K. M. Munshi, and some others. But the main chairman was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Okay. And moreover, important thing is that drafting was not just copying and just editing a few things. It was selecting, modifying, adapting, and as well as designing. That's why the Constitution of India is very unique, because it has a lot of diversity. Overall, some committees of the Constituent Assembly are like, these were a few committees which were made for, the smooth functioning of the Constituent Assembly. Union Powers Committee, it defines the center-state relations and legislative powers. Fundamental Rights Committee was also there. This was drafting the citizens' rights, and Drafting Committee, which was led by Dr. Ambedkar, prepared the final constitutional amendment, constitutional text. Time taken for the Constituent Assembly was, as I told you, 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. 11 sessions were held, and 165 days went for the debate. And this was not a quite quick work. It was carefully designed, as it was going to hold the future of India. And the total expenditure that occurred was approximately 64 lakh for the entire drafting process. Also talking about the enactment of this, it was adopted on 26 November 1948. Now, what does the word enactment mean? This is that the Constitution was officially accepted. It was not yet applied. Enforcement will happen later, okay? So on 26 November 1949, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution, accepted it, and 3 years of deliberate working was finally coming to an end. And this date is now celebrated as the Constitution Day, Samvidhan Divas, that is what we call it in Hindi, honoring the document that shaped the future of India. 284 members signed the final document, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad presided over, as he was the chairman and the president of the committee. So, India's democratic governance was represented over here when the constitution was finally adopted. Now, talking about the enforcement of the constitution, this came on 26th January 1950, which we celebrate as a Republic Day, and it is specifically chosen this 26th January because it is also the anniversary and of like the Indian National Congress declared complete independence, that is the Purna Swaraj, on 26th January 1930. So that is why they took 26th January 1950 as the Republic Day. Okay. So this marks India's independence and India's historic transition from a British Dominion to a democratic republic. And then the impact of the on governance, the impact of constitution on governance. It It was a complete end of British rule, right? And finally, India was now an independent state. It was not anymore an dominion. It also established the Republic of India, India as a republic state, as a republic nation, okay? And these words like justice, liberty, and equality, these will be further discussed. And but the main significance of all this was that India was finally a republic and no more British authority. People were now supreme. Okay. The sources of Indian Constitution. Now, this is a very important topic because India has not just used its own, used the, it was not only about India. It also added the entire world's element, an element from US, an element from France, whatever we liked in other people's constitution or it made sense to us, we tried to add it in the constitution for the development of our citizens. Okay. So it is a blend of global wisdom. Okay, the Indian Constitution draws from multiple constitutions, multiple global constitutions, we can say, and each of them is adding to the Constitution, adding value to the Constitution, be it Britain, US, Ireland, Canada, Australia, Germany, South Africa, anything. So let's begin with the first country, that is British. Now, what did India took from the British Constitution? First past the post system. We'll be discussing these terms which I'm going to use later on. So, parliamentary form of government, idea of rule of law, lawmaking procedure, office of the CAG, single citizenship, and bicameralism. All these things were taken from the British Constitution. Okay. Next, we come the US Constitution, what we have taken from there. The concept of fundamental rights, the power of judicial review, and independence of judiciary. A written constitution. We'll be discussing this written constitution, other topics as well. There are different types of constitution, written, unwritten, federal, unitary, rigid, flexible. So we'll be discussing all these and where India stands and all these. So post of vice president and the preamble are also taken from the US Constitution. Next, we have the Irish Constitution. So the directive principles of state policy was taken from Irish, and Ireland itself borrowed it from Spain. So its origin goes to Spain. And methods of election of the president, nomination of members in the Rajya Sabha by the president, all these concepts are coming out from the Irish Constitution. Then we have the Canadian Constitution, a quasi-federal form of government. So there is a federal government and a unitary government. Okay, India stands in the middle. It is federal as well as unitary. So these concepts will be later discussed, but currently you should just understand that the concept of quasi-federalism is taken from the Canadian Constitution. The idea of residual powers, appointment of state governors by the center, and advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, all these are taken from the Canadian Constitution itself. Then we come to the Australian Constitution. So the concurrent list, provision regarding trade, commerce, and intercourse, languages of the preamble, joint sitting in the parliament, all these are taken from the Australian Constitution. Next we have is the German Constitution, where emergency powers and the suspension of fundamental rights during emergencies, women are constitution, all these frameworks of the constitution are taken from the German constitution. Next is South African constitution. So the procedure of constitutional amendment is taken from there. That is the most important thing. This allows the constitution to be modified, and it's trying to maintain that the main thing of the constitution should never be changed. The basic features cannot be changed, but yeah, some other laws can be added which add value to the constitution according to the moving trends, okay? And the unique features of the Indian constitution. This is something very important. You should know what are the unique features of the constitution of your country. So hybrid blend, okay. It is the longest written constitution with detailed provision and schedules. Okay, there is a balance of flexibility and rigidity. Now, there is a flexible constitution and a rigid constitution. Flexible is the one in which the constitution can be amended very easily. It's like just passing a normal law. Some are rigid constitution where, you know, laws can never be amended, or if they can be amended, there's a very lengthy and big process. Okay, India is in the center. Some things are very rigid, they need special majority. Some things are so easily amended. So it has a balance of flexibility and rigidity. Multiple global constitutions gave a blend of many features. Okay. Now, criticism of the Indian Constitution. Now, some people say that Indian Constitution is totally borrowed. But think logically. Why are we reinventing anything? So many countries are working on the same constitution and they are successful. Then why can't India take the same ideas and make itself a successful constitution? Instead of reinventing some other laws which would later conflict with the Indian system, they had taken the laws which were already working and were accepted by the citizens and were good for both the center as well as the citizen. So we didn't borrow everything, we borrowed the best, and the best was also improved in our constitution. Okay. So the importance of the Constitution. The Constitution protects our rights, okay? It limits the power, it maintains balance, and without it, the democracy will collapse. This is the fundamental thing that without the Constitution, a democracy will collapse. Now, some key takeaways we can say that, you know, it's just a summary. So, like, we need a structured framework. We needed this because there were a lot of things, a diversity, religions, partitions just happened. India just became, freedom. There was trade to be managed, economy to be managed. So we needed the structure. Constituent Assembly was formed in 1946, and the key leaders, as discussed, drafting committee was led by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and the Constituent Assembly was led by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, and borrowed the best features from global constitutions. So this is what we studied in today's lecture. It's a small lecture because this is not something very lengthy, but yes, the thing which I told you, that what we borrowed from which country, that is something which you need to learn and get it in your mind. Maybe a few things, but that is very important. So the next lecture which will be coming up tomorrow is the salient features of the Indian Constitution. And this is something very important because in any government exam you can be asked, or in any exam, or even not in the exam, if you visit anywhere, you go somewhere, you sit in a discussion group, you should know what are the main features, key features and importance of your own constitution, of the constitution of your own country. And this will help you as well as a citizen of the country. So we'll be exploring the distinctive characteristics that made India's constitution a unique form of federal, and fundamental rights, direct principles, everything will be discussed tomorrow. And your questions do matters to us, so we encourage you to share your thoughts and ask questions, engage with us, comment, and do tell us what you need further, any concept which you don't understand or you think needs more emphasis. You can just comment it and we'll bring the video on the particular topic and we'll try to make it as brief as possible. So it helps us to, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like the lecture. Thank you and have a nice day.